Sally, welcome to the show. It's absolutely fantastic to have you on. I really, really appreciate you, and all of us really appreciate you giving us your time today to come on here. Give us some insights into your background on nutrition, biochemistry, and what we can learn and what we should be looking out for in terms of nutrition. It's such a wide topic, and there's so much information out there that a lot of us get bogged down into sort of like different fads or different information. There's so many experts out there as well that given their of what's going on. So for a lot of us, it's hard to know what to focus on. We've all got our own struggles when it comes to nutrition, in terms of the challenges that we're facing, but also the goals a lot of the goals that we have. It's great to get your ideas on everything and basically help us solve our problems when it comes to nutrition today in this short space of 45
yeah,
minutes.
Let's try.
No pressure. So tell us a little bit. Tell us about yourself. I know that you've been in Asia for a little while, but tell us about yourself and what you're doing out here. About your education as well.
Yeah. So my background is predominantly in terms of qualifications in science. So I started out doing a Bachelor of Science in Nutrition, and then did medical science in laboratory medicine. So learning about disease and diagnostics. And then I worked in corporate health for about 12 years in Australia, so developing health and wellbeing programs and also focusing on injury prevention and management. Then we had kids, that kind of got in the way, I guess, and then we moved to Asia, and I did my Masters of Science in Human Nutrition and Functional Medicine. So a lot of people don't really know what functional medicine is. It's I guess a new kind of medicine that's originated in the US, and it is moving across, I know, to the UK and very limited in Australia. But the idea is that you understand what's happening at the biochemical level, so you can get to the root cause, because that's where the imbalances begin. So it's very much personalized medicine, and so it factors in bio-individuality, genetics, and, as I said, targets the root cause rather than symptoms and signs or overt disease. We're trying to get to the underlying cause so we can improve health optimization, but reduce disease risk as well.
Okay, awesome. I mean, it sounds like very scientific approach, very evidence-based. I imagine.
Yeah, very much so. So everything we learned from a nutritional perspective. So it was nutritional interventions targeting those root causes, and it was we only learned from medical research. So definitely no textbooks. It's all what's current, what's working, what's not working, what's externally valid, so what's appropriate clinically. So yeah, it was a good approach and obviously relevant.
Excellent. And what kind of people were you? So you said you're working in corporate health. So what kind of people were you working with? What was the demographic of some of the clients that you were working with, or patients that you were working with at that particular moment?
So I worked for a number of different companies. I worked in government. I worked for insurance companies. I worked for some privately owned companies. So it was a whole range of people. The programs were targeted at groups of employees, sometimes one-on-one. So high-risk areas that were leading to workplace injuries. So trying to reduce the impact of absenteeism on the workplace.
And was there some common denominators with those particular target groups when it came to their health? Was there any sort of like patterns or things that you picked up that were quite common, or they're all very, very individualized and different?
Yeah, it completely depended on their actual job tasks. So they were often physical jobs that they were doing, but aging was a major factor. Yeah, for sure. so physical jobs and the aging workforce were big issues. So yeah, that's probably the major one that comes to mind.
Okay, excellent. You've also been an athlete. You're quite humble about this, but you're actually going to be representing Australia in a week or so. Is that right?
Well, not representing Australia, but an Australian playing in the Padel Australian Open. So yeah, that's pretty exciting. So preparing for that at the moment. But yeah, sport's been a massive part of my life since I was really young, and tennis was my big passion, but also played a number of other sports, netball, started golf now, trail running. So yeah, it's just been an integral part of my life, and gives me a lot of joy.
Yeah, awesome. And your regular so tell us a little bit about your current training schedule. What does that look like at the moment for getting ready for the Padel Australia Open?
So at the moment, most days I'm playing about 2 hours of match play. Yeah. 1 to 2 strengthening sessions a week with you. And then just the occasional run for a bit of cardio maintenance. So it's kind of at the fun end of the preparation at the moment, because it's just playing lots of matches, and then next week will be much the same, actually. Before the tournament, we've got a few days of training lined up, so it's about meeting a lot of other players and getting used to playing other people and preparing for the tournament.
Awesome. So as an athlete, as a parent, as a very experienced and qualified nutritionist, you are very much qualified to answer this next question. So I heard the other day, statistically speaking, you are more likely to become a millionaire than to get a six-pack. That was like something that I heard online the other day, which seems crazy to me, but also not. It doesn't seem too unlikely as well at the same time. And I know that although aesthetic goals, aesthetic goals like a six-pack, whatever, is not really what we want to try and cover here in terms of nutrition. But what I'd really love to understand your idea on is your opinion on why is it so difficult for people to master their health? Why is that such a challenge for people?
Well, I think there are so many factors that contribute to it, and changes over generations. So particularly with nutrition, lower quality food is so accessible now. So we can easily get packaged food, processed food delivered. We can dine out very easily. It's affordable. And often that food is of low quality. So that's a major factor. Also with nutrition, I think family behaviors over the years and the decades may have sometimes changed. If you've grown up valuing home-cooked food and you sit around the table and have family meals together, then you're more likely to still have those habits now. But if you didn't have that growing up, then you may not value food and good food and nutrition as much. So I think also people work such long hours, so they have less time to think about food and prepare food. Traveling is a major one. And also not prioritizing sleep as much. Sleep is so important. Right. And I think that's probably lowest on the list in terms of prioritization when it comes to health. We're probably sleeping less and just not prioritizing it. And physical activity, I think, look back generations, most people would do incidental exercise throughout the day, but it would be quite steady exercise. Whereas now we work sedentary jobs, and we, if we're lucky, we can maybe target 1 hour a day to increase the heart rate, if we're lucky. But maybe we can't. Maybe it's only 3 times a week. So all those factors come together, and I think that's why it's just so hard. There's so many competing demands. It's hard to prioritize all of them. And I think that's having a bit of a negative effect on the overall health of most people. Yeah,
so in a way, it's kind of like what we've learned as children how we've grown up, the environment that we're in, the habits that and our routines that our parents bestowed upon us, and those that we took in like our older years as well, like going through sort of like college, high school, or like with friends. So the people around us, environment, the kind of the technology and the speed of how things are so fast and convenient right now, and that's what I think that's had an effect on people being able to kind of prioritize their health. What's and obviously, you know, we're all kind of like experiencing this. What are all experiencing this change, right? This fast change, these kind of like convenient habits, fast food, and easy to grab food. What's the way that you've been able to, or that you've seen that people who've been successful in this realm have been able to sidestep those, or like manage those particular situations? What's been some of the key criteria for having a good strategy and getting results in that area?
I think setting some goals for yourself is a good start. So completely eradicating all the easy meals is not a good start. So rather than eat, so you may have lunch at work, you know, eating out 5 days a week. Aim just to reduce that to 4 or 3 times a week, and you take lunch, you know, those 2 days a week. So it has to be those incremental improvements over time, because it is a behavioral change. It won't be sustainable if you make really quick changes. So I think that's probably a good start. And just, I guess, overall, prioritizing, I guess, education when it comes to nutrition, and also don't be influenced by all that marketing out there. All those little notes on the front of packages, that is their job. They want you to buy that product. Just ignore it. Go straight to the go to the nutrition facts label, and just read nothing else. So kind of, just be a bit more cautious about what you're being influenced by, and make small goals, I guess.
It's great advice. And like, so for example, like when those packets go like super high protein, or like low fat, no sugar.
I saw, the other day I was reading something. It said it was a protein powder, and then when I looked at it, it was like 2 grams of protein. It was so low. And so, you know, for someone might pick that up and think that they're having a good dose of protein, but it was really low in protein. You might as well just eat some food and get a bigger dose of it.
Yeah. I mean, and similar to like some of those protein companies that I guess you got to kind of like ask the question, like behind why the suggestions are there. Like, for example, some protein powders tell you to have like 2 times your body weight of, like, you know, protein per day. So you got some people that heap in like 4 or 5 protein scoops per day. What's your thoughts on a situation like that? You know, where supplementation is almost taken over. Maybe, but like almost some people, supplementation is taken over like whole foods. Like people completely. Supplement, they're using it as a complete meal replacement.
It's really concerning. I mean, the approach should be food first. So you look at food, and so if we're talking about protein, so it's a protein-rich food. It has all these other nutrients in that food, and it works synergistically. So it's been created because that's the best way that it works together, and we can use that in a number of ways internally. When you're looking at a protein powder, yes, it's convenient, but what's the quality of the powder that you're consuming? Does it have lots of fillers in it? It could be high in sodium, could be high in sugar, heavy metals, and you're not getting all those other benefits that you do get from food. So with supplements or protein powders in general, you have to really know why you're taking it, and it's not to replace food at all. You need a food first approach, a balanced way of eating, And then if you still need supplementation, then you can look into those options. But you've got to make sure that the quality is good quality. Otherwise, you're throwing money in the bin, and you could be doing more harm than good too.
Right. So it's that food first approach because of the benefits is that because of the benefits of nutrients that you get from different types of foods?
Yeah, for sure.
To your digestive system, or is it like what is the obviously sort of the going food first is really formal. What would be sort of like some of the main benefits you get from raw, like, you know, normal foods over supplementation, like a protein powder or, you know, a zinc supplement or a magnesium supplement, something like that?
Yeah, so you're getting obviously a variety of nutrients in their natural form. So they're going to be more easily absorbed in most cases and more efficiently used. When you're looking at supplements, it's often a high concentration of one or two things. In some cases, if you're deficient and you need that, if you're clinically deficient, then that's fine. But if you're not, for everyday use, it's just not necessary. You don't need super high concentrations. And there's been studies that have very clearly concluded that high doses of particular, in this example of antioxidants in tablet form, compared to those consuming foods that were high in those antioxidants, they found that there was actually no improvement to the people who consumed the tablet form. And in some cases, there was increased risk of disease and all-cause mortality. So you can't just assume that what you're doing is beneficial to the body. You could be throwing out the balance and causing more harm than good. So when it comes from food, I guess you should have more confidence that it's coming in its natural form and your body knows how to use that better than in an unnatural high concentration.
Makes so much sense. And what are the reasons why people kind of like, the main reasons why, other than sort of like, I don't like vegetables, or kind of like I don't like this type of food, or is it? And so that's one point of it, which would probably be more of a, I guess, a choice part of it. But there's other forms as well where people kind of like other reasons, where if it's cultural reasons, if it's like a dietary preference reason, there's some of those sort of reasons mean that you have to supplement with other foods. Like a vegan, I'm just throwing something out there. Like vegan should have more protein, as for example.
Yeah, sure. There are obviously cases where that would be appropriate. I guess when I'm during our chat, I'm speaking about people in general, the average person who has no underlying problems or doesn't, for obvious reasons, there's no clinical deficiency. So I guess my approach in that sense is definitely food first. So case by case is the key. It's all personalized.
Awesome. Okay, a big topic that I think is a little bit misunderstood, or maybe even kind of underappreciated, or not even taken into consideration when people are thinking about their nutrition goals or some of their challenges that they're facing with their health, and that's metabolism. So why is metabolism so important? Why is metabolism? Why is it so important? And what should people really understand about this point?
So, as you said, massive topic. But metabolism is the process of assimilating macromolecules from our food and being used as precursors to produce energy in essentially every cell in our body. So the macromolecules being glucose from carbohydrates, amino acids from proteins, and fatty acids from fat. So just a very quick explanation. So during the day, we use all those substrates to produce energy. During the day, predominantly, it's glucose and fat and a little bit of protein. So protein, we don't like to use too much protein or amino acids to produce energy. We obviously can, but it's not the predominant source of energy. So with protein, we want to be consuming quality protein throughout the day to replenish the protein pool. So essentially, protein's used for structural components throughout the body, hormones, enzymes, all sorts of things. So as we eat fresh protein broken down into amino acids, it replenishes that pool, and then old proteins are broken down and excreted from the body. In terms of glucose, glucose is the major source of energy. That's what our body prefers to use and most easily uses. So it's easily absorbed into our body, into the blood, and the cells take up the glucose with insulin to produce energy. During the day, glucose is the main one, as well as fat, but glucose predominantly after we eat a meal, and then the fat kicks in from our stores, and then a little bit of protein as well. So that's just the basics of metabolism. In terms of metabolic rate, so we have our resting metabolic rate, which is made up of a number of parameters. So obviously our basal metabolic rate, which is the amount of energy required just to get through all those chemical reactions to keep us alive. We have physical activity, obviously, which is a modifiable component, which you obviously know about. The thermic effect of food, so we need energy to digest food. And then there's another area which refers to basically when we have a fever. So when we're sick, we use more energy. So all those factors come back to the resting metabolic rate and determines how quickly we get through that energy. So there are modifiable factors there that are important. We've got, and also non-modifiable factors. So we've got age, gender, muscle mass, body size. There are a number of factors there that affect our resting metabolic rate. There are a lot of factors that we just can't modify, like age. As we increase, our metabolic rate decreases. One thing that we can control is muscle mass and physical activity. So the greater muscle mass that we have, then the greater metabolic rate. So that's something, I guess, from a practical perspective that people can keep in mind. Strengthening exercise can definitely, in the long term, if you're consistent with your approach, then that can definitely or potentially increase your metabolic rate.
Okay. My clients that I work with, who generally, some of them have a little bit a low metabolism. So that generally they're quite sedentary, as you mentioned before. So they're quite sedentary. Some of them they eat fairly healthy, but maybe the muscle mass isn't as high as it should be. Body fat's on the high side. Energy is not as high as they want it to be, and the indicators show that metabolism is low. Like we put them on the in-body or the Tanita machine, it comes up as a BMR quite low. What are the kind of what should they be sort of like other than exercise? Is there any other sort of things that they should be doing? Obviously, exercise, like weight. You mentioned the strength training, weight training. Is there any other things that they could look at to speed that metabolism up?
So, from a nutritional perspective, we're looking at the production of energy is coming from the mitochondria, so an organelle within the cell, and the processes involved to produce that energy. There's so many, but they're all highly nutrient dependent. So it is really important that we eat quality food, so it's easily to assimilate those nutrients, but also consistently eat balanced meals. So if any of those processes, if we don't get a variety of foods, so we're getting a variety of nutrients, then there could be, over time, there could be a slight deficiency in some or one of those nutrients, which can affect the activity of the mitochondria. So from a nutritional perspective, it is really important to be supporting mitochondrial function. And over time, if you're not getting the nutrients needed, then it can lead to free radical damage and inflammation. So that's an added problem. As we age, that tends to happen anyway, but certainly focusing on balanced quality meals and diversity in your food is a good place to start.
It's making me want to go and get some. There's a fresh fruit market and a veg market outside our house. It's making me want to go there tomorrow and stock up on good veggies and berries and fruits.
Oh, good. I thought you were going to say you're dreaming of a fatty burger or something.
No, definitely not. This is gonna hopefully. I think this will do the opposite for many of us. When you talk about sort of things like inflammation and disease that comes on as you age, and all of us are getting to that point. I mean, a lot of people are focused on fat loss and weight loss. You know, a lot of our clients, many people. So a lot of it's on aesthetic goals, whether that's from social media. Or your friend loses weight, so I just lost all this much weight, and we get a bit of envy, and we're like, oh, maybe I should do it. So we all kind of like, it then becomes a contest, so who can lose the weight the quickest. And as you mentioned earlier, said it's doing things quickly is not a great sort of strategy. It's like more of a doing it, it's not sustainable doing this fast approaches. So when people are focused on weight loss or fat loss, would you say these goals are good to have?
It's really important to be aware of your weight and to have your ideal body weight as a goal, for sure. Because we know that if you're above your ideal body weight or you're below it, that your risk of disease increases significantly. So the bigger that you get, then your risk will increase even greater. So definitely having an idea of what your ideal body weight should be is a really good goal. I try to kind of restructure how my clients think. Whilst the aesthetic appeal of weight loss is motivating, I find that it isn't often sustainably motivating. I think it's better to try and focus on optimizing your health and just really trying to make long-term improvements. And as a byproduct, you'll naturally, or you should, if you're really committed, then you should achieve those body composition goals.
The clients, when you help them to reframe or restructure those goals, what kind of indicators do you think is best? What would you suggest they try to look at? Is it sort of more exercising frequently, or is it like just kind of like having a better overall food diary?
Definitely, if they can increase their physical activity, I guess that's an easy one. If possible within their time frame. And also it's a variety of exercise. It's not just cardio, it's strengthening, it's flexibility, particularly strengthening, I think. In terms of food, keeping a food diary can be quite time consuming, but just some small changes, definitely in terms of the quality of their food, and looking at their habits and behaviors and slowly adjusting those over a long period of time. With nutrition, it is about trial and error. One thing may work for you, but it may not work for the next person. And so whilst we use research as a guide as to what works and obviously what's healthy, what we know is good for us, but we need to adapt to the person. And so we factor in habits and their dietary intake, their quality, and look at combinations of macromolecules and make sure they're getting all the nutrients. So it's kind of behavioral, but also looking at the actual nutrition science as well.
Yeah. It sounds like it's very much like the science-based approach to like the foods that we need is really important. It seems like it's very much a psychological reframe for many people as well. How much do you think it is versus psychological versus the actual food itself?
I think they're just habits that are formed over a really long time, and they're so hard to break. And it'll take a long time to improve that and to reset. So it's not easy. You can't just wake up and change the way you do something. You know, if you go to bed at 10 p.m. and you love having a 9 p.m. snack, and you've been doing that for 20 years, then that's going to be pretty hard to crack. So we just need to gradually, there's no quick way of doing it. We just need to gradually reduce that. And also I use education to understanding the science of it as to why we're making the choices, because I think that's a big motivating factor as well. When people realize, okay, me having that snack at night, this is what it's doing, then they can sort of reframe their approach and try and make some changes from there.
Nice. And what else should people prioritize when thinking about nutrition?
I think this is pretty basic. I think it's about creating balanced meals and also sitting down and eating. People eat on the run and they're often not mindful of what they're eating. It's a quick snack, but also you need to be organized and prepare in advance. So just not all the time, but most of the time. So it's about having balanced meals, quality food, as I keep saying, diversity, and try and sit down and enjoy the meal and focus on the food. If you need a snack, just sit down for 10 minutes and enjoy that snack rather than eating it on the run.
Yeah, stopping, right? There's just to stop and kind of like enjoy because if you go way back, like there was, and if you're quite religious, there's a form of like stopping, preparing yourself, thanking, the gratitude, like remember time to say prayer before you eat. Like that's all in a way is like setting yourself up for being mindful. I guess mindful eating.
Yeah, for sure. And you can't always do it. I mean, there are times during the day where you don't have an option, but if you can try and aim to do that more often than not, then that's a good start.
Where is the gap right now?
Well, with nutrition, I find that it's nearly always taken out of context. It's not placed in its context. So you've got your influencers, you've got the media, you're getting all this information about nutrition, about a superfood, which there is no thing as a superfood. A superfood, a product, a way of eating, and it's all just presented on its own. It's not put into context. And so I think people just need to try and be more aware of that, obviously being influenced by marketing, which we've been talking about. But there is no quick fix when it comes to nutrition. There never will be. There is no supplement. There is no diet that will fix you within 6 months. It is about having a consistent approach and learning about nutrition and how it works, I think, is really important. And it's about finding your motivation and being consistent. I spoke to a friend recently, and she had said, another friend had told me that I can't eat roasted nuts. And I said, why can't you eat roasted nuts? And she said, because roasting it changes the fatty acid composition. And I said, well, it does a little bit, but not enough to cause any significant effect in vivo and in the body. And I said, it has to be put into context. If you're choosing something over roasted nuts because you think roasted nuts are a bad option, it's probably more likely that you're choosing a worse option than the roasted nuts. So you've got to put it into context. You've got to see it as in its place, essentially. And it's, with supplements, take this and you'll have improved cognition. Well, taking one thing could, as I said earlier, it could throw out throw out the balance, and it could be causing other problems. So unless you actually truly need something, try not to be influenced by all those marketing claims, and try and assess nutrition in its context.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's it's just you kind of always kind of seems like you're always going to be got to be on the lookout for sort of like the new fad thing or the new like superfood, something that your friend did that caused them to do this, and it worked for. And I think it all comes from good intentions, like how often like achieve something, they go, yeah, you should do this, or they kind of like start when they're drinking from the Kool-Aid, which is great because it's worked for them, but then they kind of like unintentionally want somebody else to try something. It might not be the best thing for them.
Yeah, exactly. Just take in the information, assess it. Is it really going to benefit you as an individual? And go from there, I think.
Yeah. When it comes to sort of like, there's a lot of social media experts right now, and a lot of them are talking about sort of counting calories, or like how counting calories is old news. What you should be doing is fasting, or like cutting carbs, or kind of a new sort of like new approach, this brand new evidence-based approach. I mean, is there new sciences that come out in terms of these keto versus paleo versus fasting, or is it the science has been there for generations and years? We've had like so much history of people being able to achieve health and nutrition goals. Whereas, what is what all this information about there? Is it as simple as calories in, calories out, or the simple science, or is there new stuff that we should be aware of that's going to revolutionize and change the way we eat, think about nutrition?
It isn't just about calories in, calories out. There's a lot more to it, but calories are important. At the end of the day, if you have a surplus of calories, you will likely put on weight. There are a lot of things that go on between the calories in and the calories being burned. But if you've got a surplus, you will likely put on weight. If you have a deficit, you will likely lose weight. There are exceptions, obviously. But the way I look at it is, for the patient, I do not want them to be counting calories. I mean, that is not the way you want to be eating, and you want to be learning how to form meals that are appropriate for you as an individual in terms of portion size and quality and diversity. The calories in, calories out is important for the practitioner. It's a reference guide. It's not the only reference guide. There are a number of things that we look at, but that is something that we can definitely use as a guide to make sure that patients are on the right track. So I guess when you hear research saying it's not important, again, you've got to put it into context. It's one study alone, and what were they truly trying to measure? So you have to look at all the collective research on that subject. And at the end of the day, it is important, calories in, calories out, but not for the patient. You don't need to be counting calories. Leave it to the practitioner. And you just focus on making sure that you're making the right choices when it comes to good food.
Awesome. So you mentioned before that blood testing is important, data for you to get blood testing important for you to get data. What should we really be sort of like? Where should our awareness be on blood testing? What are we looking for? And do you have any suggestions or referrals for getting blood testing?
Yeah, so the blood testing provides a lot of information. It gives us a lot of clues as to what's going on at that biochemical level. So if your bloods are normal, that's great. It's within those reference ranges for the general population. But when there are changes, it gives us an indication of which area to be looking into and how to target in hopefully in some cases nutritionally. So with the blood tests that I look at, I'm looking for risk factors of chronic disease. So that's your complete blood count. So looking at immune cells, so your white blood cells, red blood cells, platelets, hemoglobin, concentration, liver function, renal function, inflammatory markers such as carbon reactive protein, your lipid profile, so your cholesterol levels and your triglycerides, as well as glucose and insulin. So that gives me an indication of how sensitive your insulin is. So whether if you've got raised fasting glucose, then that's telling me that your insulin is less sensitive, and that's a major risk factor. And also vitamin D and iron studies are also good ones to obtain. So in terms of getting those bloods, you can go to your GP. They're the ones that. So you can take a list of the bloods that you want tested, and they wouldn't have a problem. They just send you off to get them done, and then and that information gives me a lot of detail to work with, along with taking your medical history and your family history. So looking at conditions that are running in your family, bringing all that information together with your dietary intake gives me a lot of clues as to, okay, what are your risk factors and which areas do I need to prioritize in terms of reducing your overall disease risk, but optimizing your health.
Okay, awesome. So head to a GP. We're getting our bloods tested, looking for certain types of like the white blood cell count, red, and then immune cells. Gives us an indication of like our risk factors when it comes to chronic diseases. And then by that you can analyze someone like you're able to analyze that and then help us with sort of actions that we should take in order to replenish those cells, or like to get more balance in those areas.
Yeah, correct.
Awesome. Okay, so there you go. Head down to your local GP. GPs, obviously in Thailand, we don't really have GPs, but heading down to the hospital or local hospital and speaking to.
I think that's the easiest way of doing it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, awesome. Could you? There's one little thing. Speaking of cells and speaking of like immune helping out immune disease, helping sort of like restructuring or rebalancing on a cellular level. I've read there's been a lot of benefit through this, some things you can do to really benefit those. Like there's a lot of information about like cold plunges at the moment, and a lot of people are having these ice baths. I'm not asking you to answer that question because it might just be not in your realm, but what I have heard a lot about is fasting as well. So like the benefits of fasting, whether it's 24-hour fasts, some people doing 3-day fasts, dry fast, different types of fasts that you can do. Can I ask you what is your knowledge on the science of fasting in terms of like the science behind it and what it can do for our cells?
So in terms of the cold plunging, I guess it works in the same way as having saunas, and fasting calorie restriction is the same mechanism, and it's called hormesis, or the hormetic response. So if you look at within our body, we want to stay within our homeostatic parameters. So imagine two parallel lines, and we want to kind of remain within those two lines. That's when our body would be working quite efficiently. Hormesis is essentially pushing ourselves slightly outside those lines, but then coming back in very quickly. So essentially creating a little bit of stress. So creating the production of free radicals, the damaging free radicals, which leads to the increase or upregulation of our internal antioxidants. So research has found that in animals, this mechanism actually leads to longevity. In humans, it's a little more complex. Most scientists won't say it's definitely not conclusive, but in animals, in a number of different animals, it does reduce the aging process a little bit. So that's the mechanism. And we know with fasting, with quite severe fasting, it can be used medically for conditions such as autoimmune conditions and neurological conditions, and that's proven to be statistically significant in terms of improving immune response. So there are definitely, I guess, theoretically benefits there, but this is in terms of fasting, that's an extreme case. So it's not for the everyday person. In terms of practical applications for fasting, the way I look at it is I do encourage a 10 to 12 hour overnight fast. That increases metabolic flexibility, which essentially means it allows an easier switch from using glucose to fat as an energy substrate. So we want to promote using fat at nighttime when we're resting as much as possible. So we want that switch to be very efficient. So by doing that, you do the fast overnight. So that means finishing dinner, say around 8 o'clock, no snacking, just water. And then when you wake up, you start your day with a quality breakfast. And that has been shown to add some value. In terms of fasting during the day, I steer away from it because I think it's an opportunity to be obtaining all your nutrients that you need during the night and during the day. But that is your opportunity to be eating quality food and getting through the day. So the other thing is, if you're fasting into the morning, I find, one, it's not sustainable, and two, you often end up overeating later in the night, which is pretty much, really not a good thing to be doing. Yeah. So focus on trying to finish eating at night a little bit earlier and using that 12-hour fast. That is essentially your hormonic response overnight, and a 12-hour fast should be sufficient.
That's huge. So what we're effectively saying is that, like, our ability to burn fat overnight comes from stopping our consumption of food at, say, like, for example, 8 o'clock. So that window between 8 p.m. at night and 8 a.m. the next morning, that's our window for optimizing our, I guess, sort of fat burn or glucose or stopping our glucose consumption. So we have and during the day, like high value foods during the course of the day, stopping at 8 p.m. at night and then having a good night's sleep, allowing that recovery to happen over the course of the day.
So if you're having snacks at nighttime, the glucose and the fat, you're entering that restful time, so you're not using a lot of energy, and so most of it is not going to be utilized immediately, and it's going to be stored as fat. And your body needs to work through that glucose and the stored glucose before it properly switches over to predominantly fat. So that's just something to think about. But it has definitely been proven that reducing your eating window during the day by extending your overnight fast definitely promotes better health.
Amazing. So basically, we should do what we tell our kids to do.
Yeah, probably. Eat exactly. Finish eating at 6 p.m. and you're done. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah, we tell our kids this valuable information, right? Get your sleep, have a make sure you rest when you get home.
It's amazing. It's so insightful, isn't it? Yeah, exactly.
That's huge. Okay, so the fasting is looking at it as more of a consistent behavior, or a consistent habit, rather than like just doing that kind of, like, because I mean it happens a lot. Right? If you measure your hunger if you fast for like up to 12 noon, and 12 noon comes, you go, I'm starving, I can't wait to eat. I haven't burned these calories. Now I can let's hit the buffet, or these sort of things creep into your mind, and maybe make choices. That's great advice.
Yeah, but also if you're fasting through the morning until lunchtime, your hormones are going to be affected. So your insulin sensitivity will be reduced. If you've woken up because you've got, other hormones kicking in for the day, so they all interact, and if your insulin is becoming less sensitive, then your glucose isn't going to be taken up by the cells. And then when it's shoveling around in the blood and can't be used, then it'll get stored as fat. So you got to find that balance, because it can lead definitely to, fat accumulation over time if you're making the wrong decisions in terms of eating times.
Amazing. Awesome. So many more questions we could explore, but I think maybe we could do come back for another episode a little bit later on down the line. But yeah, conscious of your time, I'd like to ask you how people can get in touch with you, what services that you're offering, and then like how people can get in touch with you if they want to see you for consultation. You can maybe help them with their nutrition and their approach.
Sure. So I'm easily contactable on WhatsApp or line, so I can send my details to you, obviously, if people are interested. So my mission is very much to teach clients about how to eat really well-balanced quality foods and meals. I think that's kind of been lost over the last few decades. People have very either carbohydrate-ridden meals or too much protein, and everyone's a bit different. But with all the information that I can obtain from you through your dietary intake, your medical history, family history, and your blood results, I can determine exactly the correct ratios for you and the correct calorie intake for you. And I take you on an educational journey. So I want you to understand what your risk factors for disease are. I want you to understand the very basic science, and I want you to understand the very basic science of nutrition. And we use that over, say, a 3 to 6 month period, and really try and create those balanced meals, so you've got the confidence to knowing that you're making the right decisions for your health as best you can.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of people that want to reach out to you and get in touch, myself included, actually. So
sounds good.
Always something you can learn more. Sally, thanks so much for your time today. Really, really appreciate it. This has been gold. Some great information here, and look forward to continuing again with you on another session, I hope. And good luck with your upcoming paddle tournament, which
yes.
When is that? It's going to be end of this month?
Yeah, so I leave on the weekend, and it starts this time next week, actually. So looking forward to it. But thank you for having me today. That was fun.
Thank you. It's been absolutely fantastic. Cheers, Sally.
Okay. Ciao.